Okay, so I think we've probably done the mechanical treatment as far as we can carry it right now with lubrication and the like. And what I've just noticed is the on-off switch doesn't work very well. So you can see it's in the manual position right now. And there's nothing happening here. And if I just move the control back a bit, hit the sweet spot, there she goes. So exactly what's causing that, I don't know. Let's look into it. Let's see what we can figure out here. Okay, we'll flip it over. Everything's clipped back in, so nothing should fall off. Okay, Mr. On-Off switch is located right here. And the control for it is here. And you can see it pushing the switch in. Now that motor should be spinning now, but it's not. See, it just goes momentarily. Now, dirty switch out of alignment. What is going on? And bearing in mind that in here is the full line voltage. Just looking at the wires, everything else is covered up, so in fact you can't get a shock off this guy. That's very good. But what are we going to do about this? Now, maybe it's just dirty inside there. It's fixed in place very solidly, as you can imagine. This is all engineered. Can't imagine these rods are somehow pushing the wrong distance. Really can't see how that happens. So I think our option is to open up the switch and look inside. It looks like it's kind of made to have that done. Let's see, those are screws going all the way through the other side. I can feel the heads underneath here. So I think that's our only option, is to open this guy up and take a look inside. So when we do that, it's going to come loose and all. Here, before we forget, let's turn off the power and unplug it. Hey, my day started out with a 1-hour power outage at my house here this morning. So that was a little different. I have an emergency power supply. It's just here in my shop. I have a couple of car batteries, and I have some of those computer power bars that help you run your computer for a couple of minutes when the power goes out, so you can shut everything down. And the batteries in those things, they only last 5 years or so. They're shot, so they're gone. The original batteries are gone. I'm using a car battery in its place, 2 car batteries. So I can supply emergency power into my house for quite a while for running light duty things like small lights. And I have my the head part of my internet connection also supplied from it, so our internet connection and wireless stays on, so we can continue to use our battery operated computer devices, and that's a great thing. I'd recommend anybody to think about doing this if you're in any position to put a backup power supply on the head end of your internet connection so it stays operating. And you probably have battery operated computers, battery operated tablet in your possession. Bingo, you're kind of good to go. So anyway, enough of that. Let's take this guy apart here. screw heads underneath there. What are they? They are just simple flat head screws. Those are pretty tight. Can't say I've ever taken one of these switches apart, so hopefully it's not going to fly apart because there's springs in there. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's a spring in there all right. So there's a chance this thing will just come apart as I take it apart. That's not what we want to have happen. So as I loosen this off, I'm looking for the top to be springing upwards. It's not. If it was, I would be really concerned about taking this off. Okay. Let's hope we can open this switch here. Maybe it's not meant to be opened. What was that? Could have sworn I just heard a sound like electricity in there. It's not possible. Here's the plug. Imagination's running wild. Oh. Okay, it's taped, so let's get rid of the tape here. Oh, that's not hard to do. Tape is shot. It's blue painted Scotch tape. What kind of Scotch tape? Not a long-lived thing. Don't put Scotch tape on anything that you hope will be taped 10 years later. There we go. The top has come off and fallen to the floor, which is not the best move either. So there's the top. Here's what we've got. There's a capacitor. Gee, I wonder if that's the motor starting capacitor. I don't think so. These motors have a special winding that causes some kind of a phase, out of phase condition, which is enough to kick the motor over. Oh, that's interesting. Ha! Let's see if I can show you this. So you saw me, I just pulled that piece of brown plastic out of there, and lo and behold, this capacitor is not connected. It's broken away. There's a resistor in there. 22 ohm resistor. I wonder what that's for. Well, there's a little more to this than I would have thought. I wouldn't expect a resistor and a capacitor inside the switch like this. I wonder if that weakens the motor a bit. Okay, so let's look at the switch operation. This is kind of curious. I don't want to take that capacitor off there yet because I'm still thinking things are going to fall apart. So you can see how the push bar pushes the one contact over towards this contact, which seems to be wandering around in there. Okay, I'm going to have to get a little more invasive. I'm going to bend up the capacitor out of the way. And then we look in there. Come on, stay focused. Camera's terribly annoying when it comes to this focus thing. Well, that piece looks bent funny, doesn't it? Look, kind of gets bent from this rod pushing it too far. Oh, it all fell out. Okay, I don't really want that to happen. It's really simple how it's all held together. Well, I'd say it's just simply bent. How it got that way, I don't know. Now, is there something in the lid that's supposed to hold it? What was this piece doing? It's just sitting on top. It's just sitting on top. Just sitting right there. So, there's not much holding this piece. Oh, I wonder if because of... Oh, you know what? I can see the whole thing now. It's all come clear to me. This guy is moving. He's moving this piece a little bit. And that movement's being translated to the end of the resistor here, where the poor solder joint was on the capacitor. And that little bit of movement over a long time has worked that connection to the point where it was either already broken or I broke it just as I took it apart with no effort at all. Well, we can put this back in place actually and see the travel of the let's see if we can get it back in place. There's some pins under here that should sink into these holes. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now it's in place. And now we can watch the operation of the switch. Let's see if I can get you in a good position to see this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to work the on-off switch. It's going to drive this bar here forward, pushing this contact towards this contact, and we'll just see what kind of clearances occur. And you can't quite see there. Let me let's see what I can do here with my camera. Tricky. What if I go right on top of it practically? There we are. Okay, so I'll start to move the switch. Contact made there. There, see, now the switch is in the on position and you can see the separation between the contacts. If I move the switch back, see that? So I think there's no question that this piece is bent out of shape. So we just bend it straight. And that should fix the switch problem. Now, mind you, what's bent once, you're going to get bent again. Unfortunately, it's kind of the par for the course here. What has happened once will happen again. So, bending this out may not be much of a permanent solution. It's not... Oh. Yeah, it's more than bent. Oh my gosh, it's broken. Holy smokes, take a look at that. Let's wait like that. Look at that. Okay. Yeah, look at that briefly. There we are. Wow, there's an actual crack right in the metal. Look at that. Isn't that something? My gosh, it's going to break right off if I just flex it a little bit more. Unbelievable. Now, how can I fix that? You certainly can't solder it back together. Solder won't work into these kinds of circumstances. And it might work for a short while. So we're in big trouble with this switch here. This is big, big trouble. Big trouble. I would have to find another one to stick in here. You can't just fix this piece, with a pile of glue and stuff like that into place, because it needs to flex back as the other contact is brought into contact with it, it needs to absorb some of the motion. It has to move also. If it doesn't, then I think this thing will jam up every time it tries to operate the switch. Whoops. Well, that's pretty interesting stuff, I might say. And yikes, I'm really not able to do anything. Nothing's coming to mind here at all. Well, that's one to think about. I think I'm going to set this record player aside. Let's see now. That's 4 things I've got set aside. Oh my gosh. That's not very good. But I'm going to set this aside because I may have to acquire the switch here. I may have to take it from another player. And none of that's particularly easy to do. Because if you take a switch from another player, well, that other player is shot now. I mean, you're just kind of moving the pane around. You're not really fixing anything. But that's all we can do here right now. I can't do any more for this record player. It's kind of unfortunate. Until we resolve the switch problem. And I could always put a completely alternate mechanical switch, like a regular on-off switch, onto it. Just mount it somewhere. But that's not so good because, you know, these things are supposed to turn themselves off. That's part of the fun, is watching all these mechanical things move. So I could also fuse it so it's on all the time. And the sense of that would be you'd have to unplug the record player to shut it off. But the rest of its mechanics would actually work just fine. You just have to unplug and plug it in. And again, you know, that might be okay for someone like me, but for the owner of this, don't think they'll like that as a solution. So we're going to have to set it aside and ponder the situation some more. And yeah, that's about it. Too bad. So, on to the next thing.